On 6:30, a 4-day police operation involving 8 police forces is underway in Ipswich to target organised crime on the roads. Under Prime Minister Boris Johnson's new plans to clamp down on county lines gangs, operations like this one in the East region will receive millions of pounds of funding in the next 3 years.
Well, East of England reporter Amelia Harper attended one operation.
All right, thanks very much.
A multi-agency regional crackdown on organised crime is taking place in Ipswich. The aim to disrupt criminals who operate across county borders using the roads. Under the Prime Minister's new plans to target organised criminals, county lines and drugs, the number of disruptions like this one will increase by 20% in the next 3 years. 2,000 county lines will be dismantled using £300 million. The head of this regional operation says it is a realistic target for police.
I think it's aspirational, which is what we should be working towards, but it's going to take multi-agency response along with police forces working together collaboratively to deal with this sort of crime on our roads. The biggest challenges that we face is the intelligence around who's doing what, making sure that intelligence is fresh, making sure it's valuable.
Over 100 vehicles possibly involved in crime will be stopped by teams from 8 regional police forces. Checks will be carried out, including drugs testing if police suspect they're being used or transported. One of the plans is that testing is going to be expanded upon arrest, and individuals that are found to be doing or involved in drugs will be pointed by police towards relevant interventions. Do you feel that's your job, or perhaps something more to do with healthcare? And how is this going to affect the work that you do?
It's everybody's job to provide the recommendations, and I think that's something that we've experienced over many years of dealing with county lines, is the inability of one agency to deal with it in isolation. So in terms of what we're trying to do and what the government's announced, then there's lots of opportunities for the government agencies to work together to deal with this issue.
As part of the plans, when dealers are arrested by police, police are then able possibly to seize their phones and message their clients to try to discourage drug use. Do you think this could blur the lines between you taking action on criminality and then becoming possibly complicit in it?
It's an interesting one. I'm not sure how that would work, but ultimately the responsibility of the police is to prevent and detect crime. So anything that we can do, new ideas that are preventative as well as that detection and that investigation of crime is welcome.
During disruptions like this, police say the extra funding will help to break up organised criminals operating across different counties. They hope the new measures will help them clamp down on individuals, but also on larger scale organised crime over the next 3 years. Amelia Harper, GB News, Ipswich.
Coming up here on the programme, our reporter Will Hollis has been out in the East Midlands, finding out what you've made of the latest news about the Downing Street Christmas party. Your reaction after this.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints, over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back. It is 20 minutes, coming up to 20 minutes to 7. You're watching The Great British Breakfast with Rosie and Simon.
Now, the fallout is expected to continue today from the new, the cocktail of COVID restrictions and, of course, the allegations that Downing Street staff partied illegally last year. Rising cases of the Omicron variant mean the government's moving to the next step of its COVID winter scheme, Plan B.
Well, with more on what's happening, our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, joins us now from Nottingham. Will, a very good morning to you. Just remind everybody what these new rules for England are.
Good morning. Yes, you might think of this being the morning after all of the trouble that we saw for the Conservative Party yesterday, but I don't think it is at all. I don't think this story is going to go away for a long time. As you say, Plan B, that was announced yesterday. It comes after the allegations that have been going on from around about a week of this Tory party last Christmas. Before we can even get to enjoy this Christmas, we're still thinking about what may or may not have happened inside of Downing Street last year. It's a bit of a cocktail, as you say, Rosie. All of this coming at a particular time when we are seeing the Omicron variant rising, cases rising inside of Britain. There's a lot of concern as to how transmissible that is, although the data isn't quite there yet. But Plan B is what's being pushed for. It was announced yesterday by Boris Johnson in a press meeting. Just to give you the real simple basics, COVID passports, so that's in places with 500 or more people indoors, up to 10,000 people for larger scale events. So that could be simply displaying your vaccine status, a double jab, or it could be a lateral flow test done within recent time. Another one, more masks. You're going to be having to wear masks inside of cinemas and theatres. As you remember last week, the announcement to bring masks back after a summer without them. A lot of people were very unhappy about it. In places where I've been around Nottinghamshire and the East Midlands, a lot of people were also very happy to see masks. They were quite bemused by why it was even taken away in the first instance. It's just a piece of fabric. They were saying, why don't you put it on? It's going to help stop the spread. But a lot of people, as I said before, were very unhappy to see masks come back. So that's another thing, an increase in masks. And the final one, working from home. Now, it's not a mandate. It's not telling people to work from home. It's just highly recommended. And the tricky thing with that here, particularly in Nottingham, is that there is a concern for what that might mean for business. The East Midlands Chamber, one of the groups that's responsible for representing businesses in the East Midlands on a national scale, so that's Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire as well. They're really concerned about what this might mean for people who live and work in these places across the East Midlands. One of the quotes here from Scott Knowles, the chief executive, says, given the importance of this season, so Christmas, to these sectors, these coming weeks are critical to their future prospects, and any restrictions that act as a barrier to business continuity or capacity will be massively detrimental. So there's certainly a lot of concern about what this might mean, but with rising cases of the Omicron variant, some people are saying that these restrictions don't go far enough.
What do they say about the other stuff going on, this party, whether it did or didn't happen, but the fuss around that?
Yeah, of course. So this has been reported for around about a week or so. It's been dipping in and out of the news, but yesterday it really did come to a head. I think it was the day before yesterday, actually, when we saw that video released of Downing Street then press officer Allegra Stratton, joking, some people might say, about what did or didn't happen, a cheese and wine event, and they were inside of the new press suite in Downing Street at that particular time last year, supposedly after this party happened, joking about it. We saw yesterday that same person who wasn't quite that press secretary role anymore, but was still a former, still a Downing Street aide, an advisor to Boris Johnson. She decided to resign because of the fallout on this. You can see all over society, on Twitter, in the depths of the online community, or even out on the street, that a lot of people are really unhappy when we were told, the public was told, to stay at home, to not see your family, even in those really dire consequences when people were losing loved ones, when people were separated from their family in care homes. As you can expect, a lot of people are very unhappy about this. And last night, just after the announcement of Plan B, I had a chance to come out and speak to some of the people in Nottingham about how they feel about this cocktail of what's been going on in the Tory party recently.
It's a bit of an insult to everybody else because obviously we couldn't see our families last Christmas, and I've read somewhere that while they were having a party, that someone's father died, and he's still got the unwrapped present, the wrapped presents sitting in his living room, and he couldn't even give them to his father, and it's just not fair.
Well, I think it's ridiculous, really. We've had so many deaths due to this pandemic, and I think it's really, quite frankly, an insult for our Prime Minister to go ahead and party while people that we love have died, and people have been in care homes not being able to see their loved ones. We've all followed the rules, but he clearly hasn't.
I think it's a very poor thing that they've done. Obviously, there's got to be something behind it, considering that there's allegations out there. So I've got to turn around and say that there's definitely something there. So I think it's true.
Well, it's terrible. I mean, it really is terrible. I can't beg his belief that they'd go off and do a similar thing like Cummings did. You know, it's not like, you just don't learn any lessons, do you? And the thing is, what really annoys me, it just brings all the politicians down. You know, it doesn't matter, Labour, Conservative, whatever. They're all just the same, aren't they? They just can't be trusted.
Certainly a lot of unhappy people here in Nottingham, and I can guarantee you that's the same picture wherever you go in the country. It's not just the public, though. There are Conservative politicians in Nottinghamshire, in Mansfield and in Bassetlaw, who say that they're not going to vote for this Plan B next week when they're asked to in the House of Commons. Even though there might be a bit of a Tory backbench rebellion on this, it will probably go through because there is a great level of Labour support who for the whole of the summer have been asking for and urging the Prime Minister to enact greater restrictions much more quickly than we're seeing at this period now.
Will, thank you very much. We'll be back with Will a little later on.
It's 7:15 here on the Great British Breakfast. Now, new photographs show a planet orbiting around a two-star system, something thought to be impossible until now. Now, B Centauri is around 325 million light years away and can be seen with the naked eye. Astronomers spotted the planet orbiting the stellar couple at 100 times the distance from Jupiter to the Sun. Now, this means nothing to me, but we're going to find out a bit more. Some astronomers believe planets couldn't exist around stars this massive and, well, this and hot until now.
Astronomer at the National Institute for Astrophysics in Italy, Allegra Stratton, is with us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
How big a deal is this?
Okay, it's important progress in our understanding where planets are, how they can form. So it's a interesting, very interesting result.
Would you like to deal with the alarm, whatever it is? Oh,
sorry.
That's okay. We can still hear you. Not a problem. I wonder what it was. Maybe just set to say, wake up, you've got a television interview this morning. Are we back with you, Professor?
Thanks.
Brilliant. Just explain to someone like me who maybe is not... Oh, we've lost him. There we go. I was going to say...
Does that happen to you a lot? You start asking somebody a question, they just walk off.
Completely disinterested. You've got to stay, sadly, until 9.
Not necessarily.
No, apparently we are. Now,
Raphael, are you there? Are you back with us?
Back.
Yes.
Excellent.
Sorry.
Now, Rosie's going to get this question to you one way or another.
I was like, look, for someone like me, I'm not hugely interested in space. Can you just encourage me or persuade me? Why is this so important? Why is it so remarkable?
Well, these observations is extending a lot the range of stars where planets are found. Up to now, almost all research on extrasolar planets has been done on solar analogs, that is, stars similar to the sun or smaller than the sun. And there was this idea that these very big stars, very hot stars, cannot have planets because they are so hot that disperse the disk around them, where the stars form from disk around them, and the planets form within these disks. And the idea is that these stars are so hot that the disk is dispersed before the planet can form. But we actually showed that it is not so. The planet can form even in this hot environment, which is considered to be hostile for the formation of planets.
Well, we will talk about this again, I'm sure, but for now, Raffaella, it's really good to talk to you, and thank you very much for your time this morning. It's Raffaella Stratton.
It's coming up to 10 minutes to 7. Can nightclubs survive another winter of reduced business and increased restrictions? We're going to be going live to a nightclub in Manchester. I'm sure it's not going to be sort of hopping and bopping at this time in the morning.
Hopping and bopping?
Find out what the owner is
I wonder
considering.
what Popular Beat Combo are playing there this morning.
Stay afloat. That's coming up. Don't go anywhere.
Hop and bop.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, good morning. Quieter conditions as far as the weather's concerned today compared to the last few days. Lighter winds and brighter skies expected in many places. But there will be more rain coming along later associated with these weather fronts. Now, these are moving in from the west by the end of Thursday, but this is the last of Storm Barra, this occluded front, which is bringing an area of cloud and some showers during the morning to much of northern and eastern UK. The showers tending to fizzle out, the cloud moving into the North Sea by the afternoon, so that, well, actually, plenty of sunny skies then start to emerge across central and eventually eastern parts of the country into the afternoon. Whilst further west, a bright start, but cloud and rain push in here from the west, and some milder air, 12 Celsius in the southwest, whilst 6 or 7 is about as high as it will get further east. The cloud and rain in the west will move east, affecting many places during the evening, an hour or two of wet weather before eventually overnight pushing into the North Sea. That's then replaced by clear spells, but also blustery showers, especially in the west and the northwest. And those showers will be on the heavy side around coasts especially. Temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius generally, with enough of a breeze to prevent a widespread frost, but perhaps a touch of frost in some sheltered spots first thing, particularly in the east, where we'll get some clear skies and some sunshine during Friday morning. And actually, it's looking like a decent day in the east, with plenty of sunny skies for the Midlands, East Anglia, South East England, North East England and Eastern Scotland. Elsewhere, quite a few showers moving through, hail and thunder mixed in with some of those heavier downpours, especially earlier in the day, and it'll feel cold with a blustery breeze. Into Saturday, and it's a frosty start for many of us, but a bright start before cloud and rain work across the country later on. On Sunday, it's damp in the south, but mild, drier and brighter further north.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello again, 8 minutes to 7 now with the new red list travel restrictions in place. Hundreds of travellers have had their plans thrown into chaos. Some are now having to quarantine separately from their family members or cancel flights into the UK because there's no space at the quarantine hotels. Speaking at a Downing Street press conference, Prime Minister Boris Johnson admitted it is a fair challenge to question the red list travel restrictions. His response came hours before a legal firm, PGMBM, intends to tackle this very issue in the Royal Courts of Justice.
Joining us now is Tom Goodhead, is the PGMBM. Sorry, both of us are struggling with that. Managing partner. I know you've been trying to challenge the red list travel restrictions since the very beginning of the pandemic. Boris Johnson says it's essential, particularly with this new variant of coronavirus, for us to have tough border measures.
Well, we can have tough border measures. Good morning, I should say. We can have tough border measures without people having to be incarcerated in hotels for 10 days where they have as little as 20 minutes a day of exercise outside and paying thousands of pounds for the privilege. I think that is the problem, is that we haven't properly considered the alternative, which is that people are able to quarantine at home. There's no good reason for having this mandatory hotel quarantine.
Tom, I watched that news conference yesterday. With these dire predictions of cases doubling every 2 days, 1 million by the new year. I just wondered, what on earth is the point of having any restrictions at all? If it's spreading that fast, and not just in this country, everywhere, we're all in this together, why bother with a self-isolating?
Well, you're not the only one who's raised that, because, I mean, I think the initial purposes of travel restrictions in a pandemic are to prevent a new variant from coming into the country. But when Omicron is already circulating extraordinarily prevalently within the United Kingdom, this is a point that many leaders of African countries, for instance, have made. I mean, the restrictions are just pointless. And then adding hotel quarantine on top of that is just an insult to injury.
We don't have, scientists or SAGE here to come back and say, that their case. Just quickly, would you actually trust people to quarantine at home if that was in place of hotel quarantine?
Yes, I would. I mean, this is like Minority Report almost, if you've ever seen the film with Tom Cruise. We don't preventively detain people to prevent them from committing a crime. And that's exactly what we would be doing here, which is assuming that people aren't going to adhere to the law. Now, look, obviously, there will always be a very small percentage of people that won't adhere to the regulations. But what kind of a society is that if we're incarcerating people because we assume that they're not going to adhere to the law? I mean, it's just extraordinary.
Tom, good to talk to you. Tom Goodhead, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Now, as we've been discussing, COVID certificates are going to be required from next week to enter large venues and nightclubs in England, in what some are saying this is going to be a devastating move for the sector. Joining us from Bar Pop, a nightclub in Manchester, is our North West reporter Bradley Harris. Bradley, the industry's already seriously been struggling. They've had a bit of respite, and now it gets more complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. This is meant to be one of the busiest times for nightclubs, people booking Christmas parties, people coming out to have a good time as we get closer and closer to the festive period, to Christmas Day. But last night we heard from the Prime Minister Boris Johnson outlaying his new coronavirus measures to try and combat the new Omicron variant. It does mean that from next week on Wednesday, an NHS COVID pass will be needed to enter nightclubs, venues, indoor unseated venues of more than 500 people, outdoor unseated venues of more than 4,000 people, and venues of more than 10,000 people. So you'll need to show an NHS COVID pass from next Wednesday in England. or show a negative lateral flow test. There are other measures taking place that we've been discussing on the Great British Breakfast as well, some of which starting tomorrow involving face coverings, but it's that NHS COVID pass from next Wednesday that's really going to have an effect and an impact on businesses like this nightclub in Bar Pop. And I just want to bring in John Hamilton, who owns this nightclub that we're in. Good morning, John. Good morning. You saw the announcement last night. Just tell me, what are your thoughts and what impact is this going to have?
My thoughts is annoyance, obviously, of bringing in another restriction just at the height of Christmas rush within our industry. I feel that the 500 is such a loose end because I have two venues. One of them is a 400 capacity, another one is 700 capacity. So one of my businesses, I have to introduce the COVID passport, and the other one, I don't. And I've got several businesses along the street like that at different capacities. So people can actually venue hop and choose which one they want to go into now. And I feel that, you know, since Omicron has become available and been pushed on TV, we've noticed a drop in our bookings. We've noticed a drop in people attending our venues. We've noticed a drop in the age range of people attending our venues. And I just think at the moment it's just like, what is going on? And it just seems to be a quick backlash and let's do this. And it's like just left us all up in the air again. Where's it going to leave us financially? Christmas is a time for us where we earn our money and we work hard for Christmas, and that Christmas funds then funds us through January and February during our quiet times. And I don't think we're going to get through to our quiet times at this rate.
Well, the government is saying that these new measures are being brought in to slow the spread of the Omicron variant, to avoid things like over-pressurising the NHS, for instance. But for you, this is déjà vu again. From a business point of view, this is déjà vu. Here we go again. As we head towards Christmas, we saw similar pictures last year, and now you're fearful again this year, aren't you?
Yeah, yet again they've come back to us because they said, oh, hospitality wouldn't be hit this time. And they've actually come round to us through a back door. He mentioned face masks yesterday, but you wouldn't need a face mask if you were singing or you're eating or you're drinking. So will that include us? We don't know. We haven't seen the small print yet. You know, he wants us to do these NHS app passports. I'm fine with that. It's another expense for us, of course, on the door to make sure they're checked. But I'm fine with it. But I think it should have been a blanket, you know, across the whole board, that all bars and restaurants do it. It doesn't take much time. It just seems to be at the moment that if you're above this, you've got to do it. If you're below it, you get away with it. And it doesn't seem quite fair.
Well, John Hamilton, good to chat to you. That's the owner of Bar Pop here in Manchester. Interesting to hear your thoughts as these new measures are introduced in the coming days.
Bradley, thank you. Back in just a moment.
Well, a very good morning. It is 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 9th of December. These are the stories that matter to you and to us on the Great British Breakfast with Simon McCoy and Rosie Wright.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson triggers COVID Plan B in England to combat the spread of the Omicron variant so we can enjoy a close to normal festive period.
But the nightmare before Christmas continues for the Prime Minister after he apologised for that video showing advisors joking about Downing Street parties during lockdown. How are you feeling? Email us gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Well, that video forced former Number 10 Press Secretary Allegra Stratton to resign, but the Metropolitan Police say they won't investigate any lockdown breaches in Downing Street, so should any further action be taken?
Now, a new poll shows most people think the lockdown Christmas party did happen, despite Number 10's denial. Are the Prime Minister's days numbered, or does it make any difference to public opinion?
And in Great British News, Captain Sir Tom Moore's legacy. His daughter is starting a fundraising day in his honour. We're going to be speaking to her in this hour.
Well, a very good morning to you. Now, last night, the Prime Minister announced Plan B COVID restrictions will be enforced in England from tomorrow. Our London correspondent Alice Porter has been looking at how life's going to change under the new restrictions.
In one of Boris Johnson's most dramatic 24 hours in office, he's announced that Plan B COVID restrictions will be introduced in England. So what's new? From Monday, workers will be advised to work from home if possible. Current rules on face masks will be extended on Friday to include most public venues, including cinemas and theatres. And COVID passes proving whether a person has been vaccinated or had a negative test will be required at nightclubs and venues with large crowds. This announcement comes as leaked minutes reveal scientists' fears that the hospital admissions due to the new Omicron variant could reach at least 1,000 a day if restrictions aren't toughened.
There is a delay between people becoming infected with COVID and ending up with symptoms and then with hospitalisation. So there's usually about a 2-week delay. We would therefore not expect that these cases, that the case rates in hospital will start to go up for a number of probably 2 to 3 weeks. And in that period, if you're doubling up at the speed we're talking about now, we move from very small numbers to really substantial numbers, and it will keep on doubling. And that really is the reason why these measures have been announced by the Prime Minister.
The PM has fallen short of asking people to change their Christmas plans, but after the events of last winter, many people will be fearful of what could lie in the weeks ahead. Alice Porter, GB News.
Well, a tearful Allegra Stratton has resigned from her government advisor position over her jokes about that alleged Downing Street Christmas party that took place during Tier 3 restrictions last year. She offered her profound apologies for the jokes, referring to the party as a business meeting and cheese and wine event that was not socially distanced.
My remarks seemed to make light of the rules that people were doing everything to obey. That was never my intention. I will regret those remarks for the rest of my days, and I offer my profound apologies to all of you at home for them. I understand the anger and frustration that people feel. To all of you who lost loved ones, who endured intolerable loneliness, and who struggled with your businesses, I am truly sorry. And this afternoon, I am offering my resignation to the Prime Minister.
Well, before Prime Minister's questions yesterday, Boris Johnson claimed COVID rules were followed at all times by his staff, but avoided questions relating to whether or not a party had actually taken place. He's asked the Cabinet Secretary Simon Case to investigate, was there a party, pledging to administer disciplinary action if the allegations are proven true. Here to tell us more is our London reporter Paul Hawkins, who's live now from Downing Street. Paul, exactly what did happen? What do we know about the events in the building behind you last Christmas?
Do you know what, Rosie? I wish I could tell you exactly what happened. We have no hard, concrete facts and evidence. That's why Boris Johnson has announced this inquiry by effectively the boss of the staff at Number 10, Simon Case, to try and establish what facts there are. We have multiple reports from multiple sources speaking to journalists, telling them about what happened on December the 18th last year. But the clear truth is we don't actually have any facts, any evidence about what happened on December the 18th. It's interesting that Simon Case was put in charge of this independent inquiry, because when Number 10 was repeatedly asked by a number of journalists yesterday whether Simon Case was at the alleged party last December, Number 10 refused to deny that. So some question marks over the real independence, the true independence of that inquiry. But at the moment, that is what is happening at Number 10, who are keeping their fingers crossed, sitting tight and hoping that with no conclusive date to the outcome of the investigation, we don't know when the report is going to be published, and in the absence of any more evidence on top of that video that emerged on Tuesday night, they're hoping that this kind of blows over and we're going to be talking about COVID restrictions, the new Plan B restrictions that are coming into force imminently in England.
What about Tory MPs? Some clearly unhappy with what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, not least of all William Ragg, the Conservative MP, who shouted resign when Sajid Javid was talking in the Commons yesterday about these new Plan B measures. He was giving a statement, and William Ragg shouting resign from the backbenches. And earlier he questioned the Prime Minister during PMQs and basically inferred that the premature announcement of these Plan B measures was a diversionary tactic from the alleged party at Number 10 last December. So he's not happy. Many backbenchers, privately and publicly, are not happy with the Prime Minister. The former Tory Chief Whip, Mark Harper, said, why should people at home listening to the PM and the Secretary of State do things that people working in Number 10 Downing Street are not prepared to do. John Redwood as well, a very senior Conservative MP, also questioning whether these Plan B measures need to be brought in. So accusations that this is a diversionary tactic. You may have heard it called the dead cat strategy, a famous kind of phrase used by the political advisor Linton Crosby, that this is a diversionary tactic. Also, that the fact that there just isn't enough evidence for these measures to be brought in. Hospitalisation rates are rising very slowly. COVID infection rates kind of falling, actually. The jury is out as well onto how dangerous this new Omicron variant is. It is spreading fast, but whether it's going to bring about an increase in hospitalisations in 2 to 3 weeks, the jury's very much out. And many Conservative MPs privately saying that there's not enough evidence there to bring in these measures, which it has to be said, when it comes to COVID passes in places like nightclubs and big venues, the detail of which has to be outlined. It could hurt the hospitality industry further.
There's this real disconnect now, isn't there, between this idea of saying, OK, work from home, but you can go to the Christmas party.
Yeah, there appears to be a contradiction there, and the government will have to clear up exactly what they mean by working from home and to iron out those contradictions in policy. And that would feed into the criticism that these measures were rolled out prematurely and that more thought should have been given to exactly the messaging to the public, which it has to be said, given the alleged party that was said to have happened on December the 18th, and the fact that the criticism, the attack line from Labour is that there's one rule for them, another rule for the rest of us, that there will be compliance issues there. So the detail exactly of how that working from home policy conflicts with holding Christmas parties, and then also how the COVID passes are going to work as well. A lot of detail there to be ironed out, and some clarity needs to be given when it comes to messaging to the public.
Paul, thank you ever so much. Paul Hawkins outside of Downing Street for us, keeping us up to date across the day.
Let's talk now to Dr. John Coulter, who's a political commentator, joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Simon. Good morning, Rosie.
Where are we with this?
I think we are in what we can only describe as a PR apocalypse. It's only recently we had the sleaze tsunami for the Tories. Then we had the demolition derby whenever the PM mucked up his CBI speech. And I think what he really needs to do is to restore confidence in the people. So practically what needs to be done is he needs to make a public apology to the nation from 10 Downing Street, not accompanied by any of his medical advisors, just him at the podium simply saying, "I'm sorry." Now, yes, I know you're going to point out he did say sorry in the House of Commons. That was to his fellow MPs. And quite honestly, I think that was really just to stave off a rebellion from the very influential 1922 committee. So from that point of view, Boris, the answer is simple: to get yourself out of this latest mess before we have another Greek tragedy. And that is, come before the nation on your own at 10 Downing Street in front of the lectern and say, "I'm sorry, we got it wrong."
Do you think, actually, the video might have helped Boris Johnson and that's become the distraction?
Yes, it's a distraction from the point of view of the various variants that are happening. I mentioned the phrase there, Greek tragedy. We now have the Omicron variant. The one nasty thing about this terrible COVID terrible COVID pandemic is that it's mutating. So what's the next, as I say, Greek tragedy that's going to hit the nation? Plan B has been operated. And the big aspect of Plan B is, whilst the experts may say it work on paper in trying to stem the flow of the variant, do the people have enough confidence? Because of this video, because of maybe any other alleged incidents or videos that might appear or allegations that might appear, there is this possibility that people will say, well, there's one rule for the politicians and their advisors and so on and so forth, but another rule for us ordinary people.
The problem with all of this is whether people will feel they want to comply with new restrictions, and certainly the mood music would suggest many would not. The other danger of what's going on is we become obsessed with a party, whether it did or didn't happen. We've had one woman resign from her post for being, getting it wrong in response to that. But there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world that we're not focusing on, and many people are quite upset about that.
Yes, I mean, you take a look right across the globe, even if we take the pandemic, look at the suffering that is happening in nations right across the globe. That suffering hasn't gone away. What about the situation even in my home country of Northern Ireland? Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, the leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, during questions to the Prime Minister yesterday, again raised the protocol. So that there is this danger that we could focus as a nation so much on these alleged videos, so on and so forth, that we forget about some of the big political issues. Could the protocol in Northern Ireland destabilise the peace process? I mean, we don't want in Northern Ireland to see a return to the violence where 3,000 people died during the conflict here in Northern Ireland. We're missing that big picture as well. So you're quite right. We've become so obsessed with these types of videos, with these types of alleged parties, that are we missing the big picture of what is really happening, not just in the British Isles, but right throughout the globe, and especially in the United States of America?
How much has Boris Johnson been damaged by this?
I think he's been really, really badly hit. And the big danger is this, that the 1922 committee at some point or other could say, look, Boris, you are a liability. Just as the 1922 committee, way back in the 1990s, saw Margaret Thatcher. We never thought that the Iron Lady would ever be forced to resign from the premiership, but she was. So basically, we're in a situation here, even though Boris has a massive Commons majority, at some point or other, the backbenchers' rebellion could be at such a stage that the Tory party decides there's only one way forward, and that's replace the leader.
Well, it's good to talk to you, Dr. John Coulter. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Always good to hear your view. And you've been letting us know what you think about all this, particularly about the Allegra Stratton resignation yesterday. Jackie has messaged us at GBViews at gbnews.uk. Says, I find watching that clip of the lady crying very uncomfortable. Have the press thought this hounding is nothing more than bullying on a massive scale? Have they thought it could tip her over the edge? It's time to stop it. She's been made a scapegoat.
Catherine, good morning to you. Just said Boris has gone too far now. These are distracting tactics. No, no, no.
And David says, I'm so disappointed in the government. No telling the truth is unforgivable. Not telling the truth is unforgivable. Of course, the Prime Minister knew about the party. How could you not when close aides allegedly there? I've always voted Conservative, but how can I trust them again, says David.
Lots of people are just cross. This happened a year ago. Many of your comments saying, can we move on? And we just asked that, you know, what are we not talking about when this is dominating? And it is front page of almost every single newspaper. Photographs of Allegra, very tearful yesterday. Has she just been the scapegoat? Is it time maybe to draw a line under the party and say, OK, what next?
Look, a couple of papers are looking at this, and we've not mentioned it. I've not seen this mentioned. Where did this video come from? What was the motivation behind the leaking of it? It's very strange that it should suddenly appear. Were there journalists at this party? There are questions to be asked that may seem, at this stage, rather petty. But when Boris Johnson turned on Keir Starmer yesterday and said he was just doing this for political gain, there was some traction in there. For some of you, and do keep your views coming on GBViews at gbnews.uk. This country is going through a crisis, and we're talking about a party. Let us know your views.
Now, it's 16 minutes past 7. A development on a story that we brought you at the beginning of the week. Now, a 4-day police operation involving 8 police forces is underway in Ipswich currently, trying to target organised crime on the roads. Well, you'll remember Prime Minister Boris Johnson's new plans to clamp down on county line gangs, operations just like this one in the East region, are now going to receive millions of pounds of funding in the next 3 years.
Well, our East of England reporter Amelia Harper attended the police operation.
All right, thanks very much. A multi-agency regional crackdown on organised crime is taking place in Ipswich. The aim to disrupt criminals who operate across county borders using the roads. Under the Prime Minister's new plans to target organised criminals, county lines and drugs, the number of disruptions like this one will increase by 20% in the next 3 years. 2,000 county lines will be dismantled using £300 million. The head of this regional operation says it is a realistic target for police.
I think it's aspirational, which is what we should be working towards, but it's going to take multi-agency response along with police forces working together collaboratively to deal with this sort of crime on our roads. The biggest challenges that we face is the intelligence around who's doing what, making sure that intelligence is fresh, making sure it's valuable.
Over 100 vehicles possibly involved in crime will be stopped by teams from 8 regional police forces. Checks will be carried out, including drugs testing if police suspect they're being used or transported. One of the plans is that testing is going to be expanded upon arrest, and individuals that are found to be doing or involved in drugs will be pointed by police towards relevant interventions. Do you feel that's your job, or perhaps something more to do with healthcare? And how is this going to affect the work that you do?
It's everybody's job to provide the recommendations, and I think that's something that we've experienced over many years of dealing with county lines, is the inability of one agency to deal with it in isolation. So in terms of what we're trying to do and what the government's announced, then there's lots of opportunities for the government agencies to work together to deal with this issue.
As part of the plans, when dealers are arrested by police are then able possibly to seize their phones and message their clients to try to discourage drug use. Do you think this could blur the lines between you taking action on criminality and then becoming possibly complicit in it?
It's an interesting one. I'm not sure how that would work, but ultimately the responsibility of the police is to prevent and detect crime. So anything that we can do, new ideas that are preventative as well as that detection and that investigation of crime is welcome.
During disruptions like this, police say the extra funding will help to break up organised criminals operating across different counties. They hope the new measures will help them clamp down on individuals, but also on larger scale organised crime over the next 3 years. Amelia Harper, GB News, Ipswich.
That was Amelia Harper. Now, let's have a look at what else is going on today. And the jury in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell has been shown a picture of the British socialite sitting with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein at the Queen's residence in Balmoral. The couple could be seen on a bench outside a log cabin in the grounds of the Scottish estate. Both the Queen and Prince Philip were regularly photographed in exactly the same spot. Prosecutors used the image as part of their efforts to establish a close relationship between Maxwell and Epstein.
The UK's chief veterinary officer has warned there is a phenomenal level of avian flu currently in the UK. Dr. Christine Middlemiss says tens of thousands of farm birds have already been culled. As of Wednesday, there were 38 confirmed infected premises in the UK, and that compares to 26 this time last year.
New Zealand has announced it will make smoking illegal by 2025, so anyone currently 14 and under will never legally be able to buy cigarettes. New legislation means the legal smoking age will increase every year, and the cost of tobacco will also rise. The government wants to make smoking unaffordable and inaccessible, ensuring the country is entirely smoke-free within the next 4 years. GBnews at gbnews.uk. Should we do something similar?
A nurse has been charged with a series of sexual offences against staff and patients at a Sheffield hospital. Paul Grayson, as an operating theatre nurse at the Royal Hallamshire, faces 20 charges, including sexual assault and voyeurism. South Yorkshire Police says 13 of the alleged offences happened at the hospital between 2017 and 2020.
Boris Johnson has confirmed that the UK will join other countries, including the USA, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, in a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. Ministers won't attend the Games in February to support Team GB due to alleged human rights abuses in China, which the Beijing government strongly denies. China condemned America's original boycott on Monday, threatening retaliation without giving any further details.
And Australia have moved into a commanding first innings lead on day 2 of the opening Ashes test in Brisbane. Travis Head has just completed the first century of the match. A few moments ago, Australia were 332 for 7, a lead of 185 runs.
Coming up here on GB News, a charity claims Ofgem knew the energy crisis was coming but did nothing about it for a decade. That's all after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, good morning. Quieter conditions as far as the weather's concerned today compared to the last few days. Lighter winds and brighter skies expected in many places. But there will be more rain coming along later associated with these weather fronts. Now, these are moving in from the west by the end of Thursday, but this is the last of Storm Barra, this occluded front, which is bringing an area of cloud and some showers during the morning to much of northern and eastern UK. The showers tending to fizzle out, the cloud moving into the North Sea by the afternoon, so that, well, actually, plenty of sunny skies then start to emerge across central and eventually eastern parts of the country into the afternoon. Whilst further west, a bright start, but cloud and rain push in here from the west, and some milder air, 12 Celsius in the southwest, whilst 6 or 7 is about as high as it will get further east. The cloud and rain in the west will move east, affecting many places during the evening, an hour or two of wet weather before eventually overnight pushing into the North Sea. That's then replaced by clear spells, but also blustery showers, especially in the west and the northwest. And those showers will be on the heavy side around coasts especially. Temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius generally, with enough of a breeze to prevent a widespread frost, but perhaps a touch of frost in some sheltered spots first thing, particularly in the east where we'll get some clear skies and some sunshine during Friday morning. And actually, it's looking like a decent day in the east with plenty of sunny skies for the Midlands, East Anglia, South East England, North East England and Eastern Scotland. Elsewhere, quite a few showers moving through. Hail and thunder mixed in with some of those heavier downpours, especially earlier in the day, and it'll feel cold with a blustery breeze. Into Saturday, and it's a frosty start for many of us, but a bright start before cloud and rain work across the country later on. On Sunday, it's damp in the south, but mild, drier and brighter further north.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back, 26 minutes past 7. You're watching GB News, the Great British Breakfast with Rosie and Simon.
Now, Ofgem's failure to act against unfit energy suppliers for years made the market vulnerable to the recent spike in prices, according to a new report by Citizens Advice. The rise in wholesale energy prices has so far led to the collapse of 26 energy suppliers, affecting over 4 million customers. The charity alleges multiple instances in which Ofgem did not act of evidence of rule-breaking in suppliers and even scaled back enforcement activity as concerns grew.
Well, Ofgem released a statement. It says Ofgem's safety net has protected more than 4 million customers, moving them to new suppliers, ensuring they don't need to worry about their energy supply and protecting their credit balances. In addition, the price cap is protecting millions more from the full impact of high gas prices this winter.
Now, Howard Cox is the founder of the Fair Fuel UK campaign and joins us now. Thank you very much for your time. What do you make of that defence, that statement from Ofgem?
Well, good morning to both of you. I mean, if it wasn't for Partygate, this would be much further up the headlines today. Well, I'm second. I mean, Ofgem has allowed cowboy energy businesses to go unchecked for a decade. They've ridden roughshod over customers for 10 years. And, you know, who are these so-called consumer guardians, Ofgem? They're there to protect consumers. I'll quote from their website. They're in place to protect customers, to stamp on energy suppliers' sharp and bad practices. Well, they obviously didn't do that. So what's going on? I mean, heads must roll.
They are saying they did protect 4 million customers and that they couldn't anticipate what would happen to the price of wholesale gas. And no one's gone unconnected. We are all still connected. It's just costing us more.
You're absolutely right. It's just costing us more. That's what you're saying. I mean, they didn't check on these situations. We understand that some of these smaller firms, and this, don't get 26 suppliers have gone out of business. Because they can't run their businesses well. They were using consumers' credit accounts, which some of them were up to £1,000, and I understand it shouldn't be more than £150. As you know, I actually campaign on behalf of petrol and diesel prices. That's my main remit. I've been asked to talk about this, and my inbox is flooded with people asking me to take this one on as well, because I'm afraid these consumer watchdogs don't seem to be having the effect to protect consumers.
The most damning aspect of this is the allegation that Ofgem not only knew what was going on at the time, they turned a blind eye to it and actually they scaled back on their enforcement as the concerns were growing.
That's the point, Simon. That's exactly the point. They knew what was going on. And as I said, I use this quite frequently in the fuel supply paying for drivers and petrol and diesel. They're allowed to go unchecked, the pricing process. These people, consumers who are actually using electricity and gas actually trust these energy suppliers to give us the fairest prices. And the consumer watchdog is supposed to actually ensure that happens. And it hasn't happened. They have stepped back. They've walked back. It wasn't until 8 years into that decade that they started to actually start putting some enforcement in place.
Howard, what do you want Ofgem to do now?
Well, I think it's a bit like asking Boris Johnson to apologise. What we need to do is actually get some sort of transparency. And I think they should issue a statement exactly what happened. And Parliament, who actually they answer to, must actually put some sort of, I don't know how it would work, but some sort of committee together to actually investigate the watchdogs. It seems that we believe the watchdogs are, or they seem untouchable. And I would think the government should act on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very well for Ofgem to say, look, nobody's out of pocket. We're all out of pocket because of this, because whoever picks up the bill, eventually it's going to be bigger than it should have been.
That's right. We're looking at an average of £94, according to the Citizens Advice Bureau, and they should be congratulated for bringing this to the headlines. I just don't understand what's happening in our consumer market. There are 37 million drivers in this country who haven't got a clue when oil prices go up. Pump prices rocket, and when oil prices come down, they don't come down by far enough, and they come down like a feather. This is a similar thing across all energy markets. These are essential resources, and the government must actually step up to the plate and sort the problem out.
Howard, thank you very much. It's been brilliant to have you on. Howard Cox, founder of the Fair Fuel UK campaign.
Now, after years and years of Angela Merkel in charge, finally Germany has a new leader. Olaf Scholz has taken over from Angela Merkel after winning a clear majority of 395 votes in the country's parliament. The 63-year-old lawyer will lead a centre-left government, ending 16 years of Conservative rule.
Ending her political career, Ms Merkel told her successor the approach was one that it should take with joy. Thomas Sparrow is a journalist based in Germany. Thank you very much for joining us. What is sort of the character and the persona of Olaf Scholz?
It is very similar to Angela Merkel, actually, sort of a very down-to-earth person. He's not seen as someone very charismatic or someone who would, in a non-planned way, comment on specific things. So he's seen, to a large extent, as a continuity of Angela Merkel. In fact, Mr. Scholz was a minister under Merkel. He was the vice-chancellor with Angela Merkel and also the finance minister. So to a large extent, what people here are expecting is a high degree of continuity. However, the new government, and in particular the new Chancellor Olaf Scholz, have stressed that they want what they described as high-impact policies, in particular coming from the centre-left. What they have proposed, what they have agreed on in their coalition agreement, for example, is an increase to the minimum wage to 12 euros, building more apartment blocks to deal with Germany's housing crisis, a bigger effort on social cohesion, and obviously tackling climate change. That is particularly important because one of the three parties forming this rather unusual coalition at a federal level here in Germany is the Greens. The other two parties are the Social Democrats, the party of Mr. Scholz, and the Liberals, the FDP.
He's a staunch supporter of the EU. He's not that keen on us in Britain, is he?
Well, he is a staunch supporter of the European Union, but that is also not unusual. German leaders in general believe that Germany can only do well if they are embedded within European Union institutions. And that's the reason why Mr. Scholz, for example, will travel first to Paris and to Brussels. That's the reason why the new foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, will do something very similar as well, traveling to Paris. In fact, she's in Paris today. And what Mr. Scholz has stressed when it comes to the United Kingdom is also very similar to what Mrs. Merkel had stressed regarding the United Kingdom, that they understand the reason why the UK chose for the Brexit path, that they regret it, obviously. That's not the way that they wanted it, but they want to continue working in every way possible with the United Kingdom, and they will try and foster those channels of communication to do so in areas like security or digitalization or different aspects as well. It is something that you see, again, Brexit and the whole dilemma and the whole debate here on Brexit from a German perspective is one of continuity.
OK, Thomas, thank you very much. That's Thomas Sparrow there on Germany's new Chancellor.
Now, coming up here on the programme, we're going to be finding out what people feel about that new set of restrictions and also allegations that there was or wasn't a party. More on that to come with our reporter. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
It's 25 minutes to 8 here on the Great British Breakfast. Now,
I'm sorry, we're looking as though we're enjoying ourselves. We just got to cheer ourselves up somehow this morning.
well, the fallout, significant fallout, is going to continue today from not only just, of course, the new restrictions that are coming into place in England, but the ongoing allegations about the Downing Street parties. Rising cases of the Omicron variant mean, though, the government is moving to the next step of its winter COVID scheme called Plan B.
Well, let's get more on what's happening. Our Eastern Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, joins us now from Nottingham. Just remind us exactly what these new rules are for England.
Yes, of course. Good morning. The new rules, Plan B, it was always on the cards. It was part of the autumn and winter plan that was announced previously earlier in the year, just a few months ago. Really quite simple, quite straightforward, to get down to the basics of what's going to be happening. COVID passports, so that can be a proof of vaccination, that you're double jabbed, or your lateral flow testing. That's going to be introduced. The places where you're going to have to show one of those if you want to get inside. So far as of yet, there's been no announcements around pubs. That area is considered safe, but nightclubs, we know that they've been closed for most of the pandemic, but back in July, a lot of people, particularly from maybe younger walks of life that had been part of university, had missed out on these opportunities, they were very excited to get back into that. Now you're going to have to show a COVID passport, lateral flow test, or a vaccine. You're also going to have to show one in indoor seated venues with more than 500 people, so maybe some of those big theatres, or unseated outdoor venues with more than 4,000 people, so that could be your big concerts, festivals, that kind of thing, or any venue with more than 10,000 people. So that's where the COVID passport comes in. That's one of the things that a lot of people find quite contentious in regards to restrictions. I've seen tweets today from two Conservative politicians, the MP for Mansfield, Councillor Ben Bradley MP, and also for the Bassett Law MP, Brendan Clark-Smith. They say that they're not going to vote for those in the Parliament, the House of Commons vote as of next week. A couple of the other things that we're going to see come into place. Masks. We've seen that masks are going to be reintroduced in theatres and cinemas. They weren't introduced last week when we saw that mask return that we've seen. Obviously, you've had to wear them in hospitality settings and indoor venues, your shopping centres, places like that. And then, of course, the final one, working from home. It's going to be encouraged as of Monday. It's not going to be, that's as of Wednesday, it's going to be encouraged from. It's not going to be mandated. You don't have to work from home. It's not like those big national lockdowns. It's only encouraged. And I think we're going to see a lot of places move towards that. But a lot of places, businesses, they're going to stick exactly as they are because they're not being forced to. They're not being legally told to.
Will, thank you very much speaking to us there from Nottingham. Lots of you getting in touch this morning about the sort of credibility problem the government have in asking people to live with increased restrictions when it appears that this time last year they weren't fully complying to the rules. Of course, lots of allegations about those parties. So keep getting in touch with us, gbviews at GBNews.
Yeah, the issue really is one of compliance. Do you intend to comply with these new restrictions? And if not, is that because of what you believe the government's approach is, one rule for one and one rule for another? Let us know. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, not at all. Now, Macmillan cancer reports say more than 83%, or 4 in 5 cancer patients in the UK, face significantly high financial costs because of the disease. Well, there's new research, and the report says this cost amounts to an average of £891 a month on top of their usual spending. The increase, they say, is due to a loss of work and income, the cost of things like travelling to appointments, rising fuel and gas prices, sometimes even the cost of things like new clothes or hats to cover up signs of cancer.
Well, let's hear more about this research. The Macmillan spokesperson, Minish Patel, joins us now. Minish, good morning to you.
Good morning, Simon and Rosie.
Now, £891, that's a fairly specific amount. I mean, how does that all add up?
So it's a really staggering amount. And as you said there, Rosie, our research shows that 83% of people are faced with some sort of financial impact due to their cancer diagnosis. On average, these costs are £891 a month, and that can include a whole range of things like transport costs, going to appointments, more expenditure on your energy if you're spending more time at home, costs for clothing if your body shape changes. 1 in 3, these costs are over £1,000. So a whole array of things. Coupled with that, you've got the loss of income for lots of people who are no longer able to work due to a cancer diagnosis. We know that these financial worries can be hugely challenging. People are really worried and anxious when they're faced with these extra costs. And Macmillan has lots of support to help people. We've got specially trained advisors on our helpline. So we'd really encourage people who are struggling with the cost of cancer to get in contact with one of our support team.
Real difficulty about this is your whole focus needs to be on your recovery. And what this research is saying is there is this then very real and significant financial burden on people as well.
Definitely. People we speak to at Macmillan tell us about that emotional hit, that shock when you're faced with a cancer diagnosis. You're dealing with that, you're having to tell friends and family, as well as dealing with the physical impact of your treatment. Then alongside that, you've got all these additional costs that you're having to deal with, often things that you won't have planned for, you won't have budgeted for. On top of this, we know that lots of people living with cancer, tens of thousands of people, will be struggling still with the impact of the pandemic. So things like furlough ending, people having lost their job, or things like changes to universal credit. So this whole amalgamation of costs that already existed pre-pandemic and additional costs is creating this really challenging picture for people living with cancer. But we have lots of support available on our website, on our online community. So we'd really urge people to get in contact with us. We can help with things like fuel bills, with grants, with benefits, to make sure people, importantly, are getting the support that they're entitled to.
I was going to say that, I mean, the work your charity does is utterly amazing. It is one of the most fabulous charities around, but you must have had a pretty tough time the last couple of years just raising the money.
It's definitely been hard for us, I think, for lots of charities in the sector and for all organisations. COVID definitely changed things massively. Fortunately, we're getting back up and running and are able to make sure that we're there for people with cancer, importantly, making sure that we've got the resources in place, whether that's our helpline, whether that's our online community. So it's been a challenging year. We really want to make sure that we continue to be here for people with cancer during what will continue to be a really difficult time for lots of people.
OK, Manish, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the work that you do as well.
It's 7:45. A new study suggests that drivers are confident in their ability to get home despite being under the influence of alcohol. And we say drivers, it's half of drinkers, according to this new research, believe they're safe to drive despite exceeding the legal alcohol limit. This is according to a new study by the University of Cambridge.
Dr. Kai Hensel, who led the research, said the findings indicate the best advice for people intending to drive is just don't drink. Well, Dr. Hensel, senior doctor from the University Medical Center in Göttingen, Germany, joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning from Germany.
Good morning to you. We have a saying in England which involves the words no and Sherlock. One of the things about being drunk is you don't have any idea of what your limitations are.
Yes, and yet it shouldn't be a surprise, and because it happens quite a lot, there's something that you could learn about and you could improve if you raise the awareness for it. That's what our study found.
You asked people when they were sober if they thought they'd be able to drive whilst drunk.
We asked them to come forward when they think they have reached the limits, that they are not allowed to drive anymore, and almost half of them were already beyond that limit. So basically they were not safe to drive. And a fair share of participants thought they would still be absolutely safe, and those were even more drunk than the other ones.
Various countries have different levels of acceptable alcohol intake. Some, of course, have a zero tolerance. And that's an approach you think is the only way out of this?
I don't think that's something that you could culturally change that drastically. But essentially, raising the awareness to make sure that people care more and are more careful is probably the best way out of that.
What actually would engineer behaviour change? I mean, I think, we all probably can recall awkward conversations where you may be saying to someone, is it appropriate for you to drink? But if societal pressure isn't shifting people's behaviour, what will?
Well, We asked the participants to come back a week later, and we saw that their self-estimation was more accurate on the second time. So just by repeating the study, they were better. So essentially, you could do this with smartphone apps or with pop-up booths in town, where basically you raise the awareness, you give people some feedback on how drunk they actually are, and they would probably get better.
You've mentioned technology, and surely technology is the answer in cars. If you get into a car and the car thinks you've had too much to drink, it won't start.
Yes, and I think there are some brands that were thinking about this, where you have a breath analyzer, and if you blow into it, it won't start, like you just said.
I feel like the responsible person who'd buy a car with a breathalyzer isn't the person who probably needs one.
Well, if they're compulsory. I mean, you're suggesting perhaps that these things should be compulsory.
I'm not sure if that's the way forward, but essentially more awareness, more education, and probably more testing. So in Germany, you would be tested quite a lot on the street when you drive a car. I didn't find that much in the UK when I lived there.
Well, awareness is what you want. Hopefully this has helped do that a little bit. Dr. Kai Hensel, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Good to see you. Coming up, the family of fundraiser Captain Tom want to help change the way we look at old people. That's to come after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, good morning. Quieter conditions as far as the weather's concerned today compared to the last few days. Lighter winds and brighter skies expected in many places. But there will be more rain coming along later, associated with these weather fronts. Now, these are moving in from the west by the end of Thursday, but this is the last of Storm Barra, this occluded front, which is bringing an area of cloud and some showers during the morning to much of northern and eastern UK. The showers tending to fizzle out, the cloud moving into the North Sea by the afternoon, so that, well, actually, plenty of sunny skies then start to emerge across central and eventually eastern parts of the country into the afternoon. Whilst further west, a bright start, but cloud and rain push in here from the west, and some milder air, 12 Celsius in the southwest, whilst 6 or 7 is about as high as it will get further east. The cloud and rain in the west will move east, affecting many places during the evening, an hour or two of wet weather before eventually overnight pushing into the North Sea. That's then replaced by clear spells, but also blustery showers, especially in the west and the northwest. And those showers will be on the heavy side around coasts especially. Temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius generally, with enough of a breeze to prevent a widespread frost, but perhaps a touch of frost in some sheltered spots first thing, particularly in the east, where we'll get some clear skies and some sunshine during Friday morning. And actually, it's looking like a decent day in the east, with plenty of sunny skies for the Midlands, East Anglia, South East England, North East England and Eastern Scotland. Elsewhere, quite a few showers moving through. Hail and thunder mixed in with some of those heavier downpours, especially earlier in the day, and it'll feel cold with a blustery breeze. Into Saturday, and it's a frosty start for many of us, but a bright start before cloud and rain work across the country later on. On Sunday, it's damp in the south, but mild, drier and brighter further north.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 8. Now, the family of Captain Sir Tom Moore are looking to set up an annual day in honour of the NHS fundraiser. The family explained Captain Tom Day will be like a Children in Need for older people that will revolutionise the way society thinks about ageing. It'll encourage people to raise funds to tackle loneliness and isolation amongst the elderly.
Captain Sir Tom Moore, who passed away at 100 years old in February, raised almost £40 million for NHS charities by walking around his garden during the first lockdown. And joining us now is the daughter of the captain, Hannah Ingram Moore. Hannah, thank you very much for speaking to us. Now, I know one thing that Tom often said was that he felt invisible and his campaign made him visible, and that's something you want to make sure is more possible for older people.
That's exactly right. Tragically, my mother died in her 60s, and she was the love of his life. And he watched her demise over many years through the tragedy of dementia and Alzheimer's. And I have to say, though, in that time, of course, he had the network of other carers, the doctors and nurses. And although he was grieving, he had other people around him. And then she died, and there was nothing. And he felt, I think, for the first time in his life that he'd aged and people were looking through him and past him. Shortly afterwards, we moved in, and you know that my father came to live with us. And it was just a little while after that that he said to me, Hannah, I had become invisible to the world. In my head, I feel the same, but what people see is something else, and you've given me my visibility back.
It's a question of respect, isn't it, Hannah? And obviously your father was, I'm not going to say a stickler for that sort of thing, but he represented an era where we respected one another more.
I think so. I think also socially we have evolved. We became very much nuclear families and moved away for work, haven't we, over the last 30 or 40 years? And it changes the way that you live, but it shouldn't change the way that we respect our ageing population, because by 2036, 1 in 4 of the population will be 65 or over. If we don't change the way we perceive it, look what the tragedy that will happen already. We have older people who are seen and not heard, and also are tragically lonely and isolated. We seriously feel that the legacy of my father allows us, we hope, to just have this positive impact on society. And we've been working really hard to hope that we can find the thing that we can do in his honour. And this feels like it. If we can just change the perceptions just a little bit, that would be incredible.
If we change perceptions, if we did manage to do that, and there was this newfound, cherished respect and honour for our older generations, that will surely embolden them to have confidence too, because I think that is part of it. Once you start to feel invisible, it's then very hard to find your voice again.
That's exactly right. And you know, in a little way, I can understand the feeling for any woman who's gone on maternity leave and come back to work. You feel that you've lost your confidence, that perhaps people don't perceive you in the same way. Imagine that emotion, but as an older person, where you feel a little disengaged from the rest of the world, especially in this high-tech, fast-moving world. It's our responsibility to give them a voice, to champion them. We want to celebrate and empower them, and really importantly, connect the generations, because that's how he lived in the last 13 years of his life. And he understood the power of that connectivity of generations.
Now, you've teamed up, I think, with Esther Ranson of the Silver Line. How is this going to work? What do you want to do?
Well, of course, what a great collaboration. We're truly honoured. And You know, I met the wonderful Dame Esther Ranson, and when she was saying that she felt she'd failed in her life to bring awareness to older people, only a tiny percentage of money raised by charity goes towards older people. I believe it's 2%, although I need to check that figure. It's woefully small, and we have the poorest older people in Europe, which is a real scandal. And so Dame Esther has tried really hard to shine the light, and she felt that she wasn't getting anywhere. And we just by chance met. And this collaboration, I think, is going to be incredible. We will give a voice to our aging population. We will give a voice, empower them and show their wisdom. And collaborating with her, it gives huge energy and focus to what we're doing, culminating from fundraising over the next few months to the Captain Tom Day in mid-June next year.
We wish you... What age are you old? When does that happen?
Well, my father never felt it. He said that he would just keep looking in the mirror and think, who's that old person looking back at me? Because he said, inside, we don't change. And he felt, imagine when he moved in with us, suddenly he was in this cacophonous family life with, you know, young children and a business, and he felt needed and wanted, and he had purpose, and he was mowing the lawn and taking the dogs out. And so for him, old was not old. Old is only what you feel inside, and he didn't feel it at all.
Well, it's really good to talk to you about this, and we wish you well with the campaign, and look forward to celebrating it with you, perhaps, when it happens. Hannah Ingram Moore, thank you.
Now, let's give you a quick update in the world of sport. And Australia have moved into I have to say, commanding lead, finishing day 2 of the first Ashes test in Brisbane on 343 for 7.
What's happened in the last hour? 343 for 7?
Travis Head top scored on 112, not out, whilst Davis Warner and Marcus Labuschagne put in 156 for the second wicket. Ollie Robinson was the pick of the England bowlers with figures of 3 for 48. Joe Root's side eventually ended the day 196 runs behind.
We can still do it. Now, British cyclist Mark Cavendish, he's been assaulted by 4 armed men during a burglary at his home. This was in late November. Cavendish, who's 36, said he and his wife Peta and their children were threatened at knife point by the men, and he was violently attacked. Essex police said none of the family sustained serious injuries, but were incredibly shaken by the incident.
Now, Chelsea's erratic run of form continued as they were denied the top spot in their Champions League group after a 3-3 draw with Zenit St. Petersburg. A dramatic equaliser for the Russians in the 94th minute allowed Juventus to overtake the Blues at the top of Group H. It means a tougher draw in the last 16 than the manager Thomas Tuchel would have been hoping for. Tuchel elsewhere. A youthful Manchester United side were held to a frustrating 1-1 draw by the Swiss champions. The Young Boys United were already guaranteed a place in the second round as Group F winners, but Barcelona are out after losing 3-0 to Bayern Munich in Group E.
Yeah, that was good.
You're watching the Great British
There's nothing like good teamwork, and this is nothing like good teamwork. Anyway, we'll be back with more in just a moment. Very good morning. It is 8 o'clock on Thursday. Are you sad? We're going to be apart for a few more days. Anyway, Thursday, the 9th of December. These are the stories that matter to you and to us on the Great British Breakfast with Simon McCoy and Rosie Wright.
Let's get on to the news, shall we? Prime Minister Boris Johnson triggers COVID Plan B in England in an effort to combat the spread of the Omicron variant of coronavirus so we can hopefully enjoy a close to normal festive period.
But the nightmare before Christmas continues for the Prime Minister after he apologised for that video showing advisers joking about Downing Street parties during lockdown. How are you feeling about all this? Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Well, that video forced former Number 10 Press Secretary Allegra Stratton to resign. The Metropolitan Police, though, say they won't be investigating any lockdown breaches in Downing Street. Should further action be taken?
A new poll shows most people think the lockdown Christmas party did happen, despite Number 10's denial. Well, are the Prime Minister's days numbered, or does it make any difference to public opinion?
Well, Well, a very good morning to you. Now, last night, the Prime Minister announced Plan B COVID restrictions will be enforced in England, and that kicks into force tomorrow. Our London correspondent Alice Porter has been looking at how, for people in England, how life's going to change.
In one of Boris Johnson's most dramatic 24 hours in office, he's announced that Plan B COVID restrictions will be introduced in England. So what's new? From Monday, workers will be advised to work from home if possible. Current rules on face masks will be extended on Friday to include most public venues, including cinemas and theatres. And COVID passes proving whether a person has been vaccinated or had a negative test will be required at nightclubs and venues with large crowds. This announcement comes as leaked minutes reveal scientists' fears that the hospital admissions due to the new Omicron variant could reach at least 1,000 a day if restrictions aren't toughened.
There is a delay between people becoming infected with COVID and ending up with symptoms and then with hospitalisation. So there's usually about a 2-week delay. We would therefore not expect that these cases, that the case rates in hospital will start to go up for a number of probably 2 to 3 weeks. And in that period, if you're doubling up at the speed we're talking about now, we move from very small numbers to really substantial numbers, and it will keep on doubling. And that really is the reason why these measures have been announced by the Prime Minister.
The PM has fallen short of asking people to change their Christmas plans. But after the events of last winter, many people will be fearful of what could lie in the weeks ahead. Alice Porter, GB News.
Well, a tearful Allegra Stratton has resigned from her government advisor position over her jokes about that alleged Downing Street Christmas party that took place during Tier 3 restrictions last year. She offered her profound apologies for the jokes, referring to the party as a business meeting and cheese and wine event that was not socially distanced.
My remarks seemed to make light of the rules that people were doing everything to obey. That was never my intention. I will regret those remarks for the rest of my days, and I offer my profound apologies to all of you at home for them. I understand the anger and frustration that people feel. To all of you who lost loved ones, who endured intolerable loneliness, and who struggled with your businesses, I am truly sorry. And this afternoon, I am offering my resignation to the Prime Minister.
Well, before Prime Minister's questions yesterday, Boris Johnson claimed COVID rules were followed at all times by his staff, but he avoided questions related to whether or not a party had indeed taken place. He's asked Cabinet Secretary Simon Case to investigate whether there was a party, or even parties, pledging to administer disciplinary action if those allegations are proven true.
Well, here to tell us more is our London reporter Paul Hawkins. He's live in Downing Street for us the morning after quite a horrific day for Boris Johnson before.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly, Simon. I mean, we had that video emerging on Tuesday night, and then yesterday morning, Sajid Javid pulled from the media rounds, although this morning he said that he was pulled from the media rounds. He decided not to take part because he was upset about that video, and then he did look not quite as ebullient as he normally is during Prime Minister's questions, under fire from some of his own MPs, as well as the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer. So, yeah, a tough day for Boris Johnson yesterday. And then yesterday afternoon, that emergency press conference called to announce the implementation of those COVID Plan B measures in England. So a really tough day for the Prime Minister, but they will be hoping, number 10 that is, that the announcement about that independent inquiry, coupled with the resignation of Allegra Stratton, will for now keep the pressure off number 10, at least for now. That is in the absence of any other evidence emerging about any alleged parties that were said to have taken place here at number 10.
There is real pressure on Boris Johnson from his own MPs. Some of them are pretty livid.
That's putting it mildly as well, Rosie. Both of you putting it very mildly this morning. William Ragg, the Conservative MP, shouting resign at Sajid Javid when he was making a statement to the Commons yesterday about those Plan B measures. And earlier on in the day, during Prime Minister's questions, he inferred that the Prime Minister was announcing these Plan B measures as a diversionary tactic from the number 10 Downing Street party allegations. You then also have the former Tory Chief Whip, Mark Harper, saying why should people at home listening to the PM and the Secretary of State be expected to do things that people working in number 10 are not prepared to do. And then you've got senior Conservative MPs like John Redwood saying that he didn't think that a good case had been made for these Plan B measures. So real proper disquiet amongst Conservative MPs about these Plan B measures coming in, about the economic impact it could have on the hospitality industry, but also a lot of suspicion about why they've been brought in now, and that the evidence isn't there, given that hospitalisation rates are rising slowly, but infection rates are actually falling gently, and that while the Omicron variant is spreading quickly, overall COVID infection rates are falling slightly, and that the jury is out yet on whether the NHS will be struggling in 2 to 3 weeks' time. But that is the worry, of course, from the government, and that is why they say they are bringing in these Plan B measures. Politically, the Labour Party have said they will vote for these measures when it's put to the Commons next week, but the government's needing Labour support to get it through the Commons because it can't rely on its own MPs.
Already this morning about a number of Conservative MPs who said they won't vote for more restrictions. One of the problems for the public, Paul, is receiving this messaging which says, OK, please work from home if you can, but you can still go to the Christmas party.
Yeah, you can still go to the Christmas party, but you can work from home. And also, how is the COVID pass scheme going to operate as well? Venues of 500 plus, indoor venues of 500 plus need to operate the COVID scheme. One would have thought that would include the House of Commons, where you can fit 650 MPs. It's not always that capacity, but would they also be following the COVID pass scheme? Some Conservative MPs saying they won't comply with that. So there is some discrepancy between what is being announced in terms of the Plan B measures and exactly how they're going to be implemented. There needs to be some clarity from the government on that, and there's still a lot of questions there when it comes to exactly what is being asked of the public, and indeed if they're going to comply at all, given the reports of 3 Downing Street parties and 1 confirmed party at the Department of Education, which is going to be investigated by Simon Case as part of his inquiry into the alleged Downing Street party on December the 18th. So, yeah, a lot of questions, and at the moment, not a lot of answers.
Paul, thank you very much. That's Paul Hawkins there in Downing Street. Now, we asked you earlier how this had left you feeling this morning. This from Marion, who says, I voted for Boris Johnson thinking he'd be a strong Prime Minister, but he is the opposite. He needs to stop behaving like a bumbling idiot and get a grip of the country, which is not just COVID, but all other aspects which are more important than just COVID.
Well, while there's so much speculation about whether there was or wasn't a party or parties even, and that independent investigation is underway, Jason's got in touch saying this is nonsense. There was no party. If there had been, videos would be all over the internet. Everyone's got a smartphone. It's all nonsense whipped up by the media, people with a political axe to grind.
Yeah, and Martin says Plan B is the scandal, not the party. They're not following the science, they're following an agenda. What is it, he asks.
Well, we would like to hear from you. So gbviews@gbnews.uk. How are you feeling about the 2 stories that are webbed together, really? The allegations over the potential of the parties, plus the imposition of Plan B in England. Please do get in touch.
You're watching The Great British Breakfast. Coming up to 10 minutes. In fact, it is exactly 10 minutes past 8. Let's have a look at what else is going on today. The jury in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell has been shown a picture of the British socialite sitting with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein at the Queen's residence in Balmoral. The couple can be seen on a bench outside a log cabin in the grounds of the Scottish estate. Both the Queen and Prince Philip have been regularly photographed in exactly the same spot. Prosecutors used the image as part of their efforts to establish a close relationship between Maxwell and Epstein.
The UK's chief veterinary officer has warned there's a phenomenal level of avian flu currently in the UK. Dr Christine Middlemiss says tens of thousands of farm birds have already been culled. And as of Wednesday, there were 38 confirmed infected premises in the UK, compared to a total of 26 last year.
Now, New Zealand has announced it's going to make smoking illegal by 2025, so anyone currently 14 and under will never legally be able to buy cigarettes. New legislation will push up the legal smoking age year on year, as well as increasing the cost of tobacco. The government wants to make smoking unaffordable and inaccessible, ensuring the country is entirely smoke-free within the next 4 years.
A nurse has been charged with a series of sexual offences against staff and patients at a Sheffield hospital. Paul Grayson is an operating theatre nurse at the Royal Hallamshire, faces 20 charges, including sexual assault and voyeurism. South Yorkshire Police say 13 of the alleged offences happened at the hospital between 2017 and 2020.
Boris Johnson has confirmed that the UK will join other countries, including the USA, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, in a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. Ministers won't attend the Games in February to support Team GB due to alleged human rights abuses in China, which the Beijing government strongly denies. China condemned America's original boycott on Monday, threatening retaliation without giving any further details.
And Australia ended day 2 of the first Ashes test in Brisbane on 343 for 7 to lead England by 196 runs. Travis Head top score with 112, while England missed numerous chances in the field. Ollie Robinson was the pick of the bowlers, taking 3 wickets.
Let's go back to our main story. Prime Minister Boris Johnson announcing last night Plan B COVID restrictions, which will be enforced in England from tomorrow. Helping us now to find out what this all means, Dr. Bharat Pankania, Senior Clinical Lecturer at University of Exeter Medical School. Good to speak to you again. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning to you too. Good morning.
Now, it was interesting watching all the graphs last night, and you're left with the impression that we're reacting to what's happened in South Africa. We're reacting to what they're fearful of happening here, when we've been told all along that the vaccinations and the boosters mean that we shouldn't be facing that. So I'm a bit confused.
Actually, it's more than confusion. We have, throughout this pandemic, always been playing catch up. And the extra measures announced yesterday are symbolic, I feel. And let me explain why I feel symbolic. So, as soon as I finish my conversation with you, I have an incident management team meeting about Omicron. And there I will be finding contacts of cases and telling the contacts to stay out of circulation for 10 days minimum and test them and do all those things. Suddenly, very soon, next week, the regulations are that you don't need to isolate, but you just have a daily test. That's ambivalent, and that's dropping your guard rather than increasing your guard with respect to reducing the arrival of this new variant. So all those ambivalent messages, control of infection of this pandemic, very difficult.
You're saying that we've been sort of playing catch up. One of the criticisms of the restrictions coming into force is that this appears to be the government putting in the action before we really know the impact of Omicron.
No, I don't think so, because as a precautionary measure, if you have a variant of concern, which may do nasty things to you, then you've got to put in your precautionary preventative measures soon. And this is why I was referring to, on the one hand, the precautionary measure of pulling people out who are contacts of a case is a good idea. As of next week, we don't need to pull them out of circulation and just rely on daily testing. That's a lower grade measure rather than pulling them out of circulation, which is a better grade measure.
Yeah, I mean, I pinged last week. Would you remember the pingdemic? I mean, and the interesting thing was, a lot of people said, you pinged? I took the app off ages ago. We seem to have slowed down a gear. We've gone backwards in terms of our preparation for what the government seems to think is going to be as big as the last wave.
Yes, we have, and we have sort of got that fatigue of all is well.
Ooh, I think we've lost him.
Struggling with lines.
I'm sorry about that. That means he can get to his meeting a little earlier. That was Dr. Bharat Pankania, and we'll be talking to him again soon about these measures.
Because one of the battles will be, and we were talking about this in light, of course, of the party and then the Plan B coming into force, is compliance. You know, how much appetite do the public actually have to say, OK, we'll do it again and we'll do it again? And how many times are we asking people to take those precautions? Do get in touch with us, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Yeah, let us know if you've had the app taken off your phone and whether you would consider putting it back on.
Coming up here on the programme, now a charity claims Ofgem knew the energy crisis was coming and then did nothing about it for a decade. We'll look at those claims and what Ofgem has to say after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, good morning. Quieter conditions as far as the weather's concerned today compared to the last few days. Lighter winds and brighter skies expected in many places. But there will be more rain coming along later associated with these weather fronts. Now, these are moving in from the west by the end of Thursday, but this is the last of Storm Barra, this occluded front, which is bringing an area of cloud and some showers during the morning to much of northern and eastern UK. The showers tending to fizzle out, the cloud moving into the North Sea by the afternoon, so that, well, actually, plenty of sunny skies then start to emerge across central and eventually eastern parts of the country into the afternoon. Whilst further west, a bright start, but cloud and rain push in here from the west, and some milder air, 12 Celsius in the southwest, whilst 6 or 7 is about as high as it will get further east. The cloud and rain in the west will move east, affecting many places during the evening, an hour or two of wet weather before eventually overnight pushing into the North Sea. That's then replaced by clear spells, but also blustery showers, especially in the west and the northwest. And those showers will be on the heavy side around coasts especially. Temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius generally, with enough of a breeze to prevent a widespread frost, but perhaps a touch of frost in some sheltered spots first thing, particularly in the east where we'll get some clear skies and some sunshine during Friday morning. And actually, it's looking like a decent day in the east with plenty of sunny skies for the Midlands, East Anglia, South East England, North East England and Eastern Scotland. Elsewhere, quite a few showers moving through. Hail and thunder mixed in with some of those heavier downpours, especially earlier in the day, and it'll feel cold with a blustery breeze. Into Saturday, and it's a frosty start for many of us, but a bright start before cloud and rain work across the country later on. On Sunday, it's damp in the south, but mild, drier and brighter further north.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
It's 20 past 8. You're watching The Great British Breakfast. Good morning to you.
Now, Ofgem's failure to act against unfit energy suppliers for years made the market vulnerable to the recent spike in prices. That's the analysis of a new report by Citizens Advice. And they say the rise in wholesale energy prices that so far have led to the collapse of 26 energy suppliers, affecting 4 million customers. Well, the charity alleges multiple instances in which Ofgem didn't act of evidence of rule breaking in suppliers. They even scaled back enforcement activity as concerns grew.
Well, Ofgem released a statement saying Ofgem's safety net has protected more than 4 million customers. moving them to new suppliers, ensuring they don't need to worry about their energy supply and protecting their credit balances. In addition, the price cap is protecting millions more from the full impact of high gas prices this winter.
Let's find out more. Richard Bartlett is a supply chain expert at Clear Now and joins us now. Richard, what do you think of the analysis of Ofgem's actions over the last 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's very worrying when we look at this report. It's a damning report, and from a very reliable source, as we know, with Citizens Advice. It's worrying because obviously consumers have been put in this situation, not realising. Obviously, we see many adverts on the TV and many social media about getting cheaper energy prices. People switch, they think they're doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden, knowing in the background this is all kind of clogging up and something's going to terribly happen and nobody knows about it, and then all of a sudden consumers are told that a lot of the energy people they're using are not going to be around. I think it's been a huge resource on consumers and a huge pressure on them in a time when we know with COVID and everything else and prices going up, this is just another chain in the clog that really affects the consumer.
The criticism of the regulator, Ofgem, is that not only did they see this coming, they actually did nothing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's worrying. You know, when we if you look at the reports from 2013 to 2018, there was a reaction. You know, that's a 5-year period when nothing was really done. And we know in supply chain, as a supply chain analyst, is, you know, a supply chain carries on working. It will carry on and carry on. And then eventually when things start to hold up and stop, you have this huge stoppage or blockage, which we've seen with many other things in the recent years with China, consumer goods, etc. And energy prices is exactly the same. You know, the less in the market, the more on the consumers. So it's been, it's a damning report and a very interesting report when you read it.
To what extent can that be mitigated by the fact that no one could have anticipated what was described as unprecedented rise in the price of wholesale gas? And Ofgem will say, actually, we've managed to make sure that more than 4 million people, we've moved them to a new supplier. No one's been cut off.
Yeah, I mean, they've tried to obviously do something, but in that damning report, it makes you wonder how much consumers have actually had to pay more money. I think that's the worrying thing, is that it's an extra price, it's an extra consumer price, extra price on a family. You know, resources over Christmas period and over the next year where we're seeing different things happening. Yeah, it's a worry. And yes, they've obviously done the best and tried to. So I'm very fortunate that I never checked my energy, and fortunate I'm with one of the bigger energy suppliers, so it's not really affecting me. But I know plenty of people that it's actually affected in my industry, and it is a worry. And Ofgem, yes, they've tried to do something, but this is what we're seeing in the UK. We need to have better regulation, better checks on these systems, where, particularly on the consumer, because ultimately it's the consumer that loses out on this and ends up paying higher prices.
It's good to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time this morning. That's Richard Bartlett there.
Now, as you know, COVID certificates are going to be required in England from next week to enter large venues and nightclubs in what's being called a devastating move for the sector.
Well, joining us now from Bar Pop, that's a nightclub in Manchester, is our North West reporter Bradley Harris. Bradley, this was an industry just getting back on its feet.
Yeah, that's right. With these new coronavirus restrictions being brought in, we heard the announcement from the Prime Minister Boris Johnson last night. Those restrictions, some of which are actually starting tomorrow. That's to do with face coverings, which are becoming mandatory in other public settings. But it's actually those new restrictions from next week, from Monday, working from home order in England, and then from Wednesday, that NHS COVID pass and showing a negative lateral flow test. Those are two things you can do and will have to do if you want to enter a nightclub and other venues which have indoor unseated venues of more than 500 people, or outdoor unseated venues of more than 4,000 people, and any venue of more than 10,000 people. You will have to show one of those two things from Wednesday in England. So what impact is this actually having on business? I'd like to bring in John Hamilton, who owns Bar Pop here on Canal Street in Manchester. John, we spoke a little bit earlier as well, but I just want to ask you, it is a big impact because it's a bit of deja vu. Here we go again. The restrictions are back. What are your thoughts?
We're still a bit cloudy at the moment because we're waiting. We all listened to Boris on yesterday evening, and it was just so mixed up. We're just waiting for the clarity now, what we can and we can't do. I have 2 venues. I said one venue is over 500 capacity, the other one is under 500 capacity. And according to the new rules, I have to do a COVID passport for the 500 plus, and the other one I don't, which is like really strange. You know, we've got the staff, we've got the ways of implementing that and checking all the COVID passports, but I just think it's another expense. You know, we are at this time of finding it hard with Omicron coming in. All the press releasing and all the TV stuff has really hit our business, impacted it quite hard. We've lost, I guess, around 25-30% of people coming into our trade at this time of year with cancelling parties, etc., etc. And we are just wondering where we're going to be come January, February. Will we have enough money from Christmas to carry us through?
Yeah, because of course people will be booking Christmas parties, and we have seen, it's been reported that Christmas parties have been cancelled because of the Omicron variant and other reasons as well. But do you think, you know, if you remember, it wasn't too long ago when restrictions were easing, people were back out in clubs. Do you think things like an NHS COVID pass, having to show a negative lateral flow, takes the magic off of going out?
I don't know if it takes the magic of it. It's an annoyance thing when you're having to queue outside in the cold while the door staff and the team check the passports. I've been going to the theatre. I've been taking my passport because the theatres have insisted it since we've opened, so I've been used to it. It's just another method of entering a bar that we now have to do, which is the clarity of, do we have to wear masks? Because there's some clarity on that yet, on size of venues and masks and stuff like that. We just need the clarity first of all, and then we can move forward. It's another, what's the word I'm going to use? Annoyance? But we have to get our businesses running and we have to comply with that.
And do you think it's actually quite challenging from a business point of view to actually try and manage all of this? Because one minute you're having to bring in these new restrictions and adhere to them, of course, and then it's easing, and then now we're back in it again. It is difficult to try and balance, isn't it?
It's trying to understand where we are. 1 minute we are, 1 minute not, 1 minute we are. It's just like that. The poor staff don't know whether they can go out. Do they wear a mask? Do they not wear a mask? And then are they jabbed? Are they triple jabbed? There's just so much going on at the moment. And, you know, a lot of our members are under 25, our staff members, and it really is hard for them as well to understand what's going on. You know, I just think clarity, and above all, clarity is really important. We will work together as a team, we work together as a community, and we will get through this.
Well, John Hamilton, really good to chat to you again. I'll let you crack on because I know you've just got a delivery that's just arrived. So that's the view from John Hamilton, who owns Bar Pop in Manchester, as those new COVID restrictions are set to take place from tomorrow.
It's changed since I was last there. Bradley, thank you very much.
Oh dear, it's like coming up to 8:30 here on the Great British Breakfast. Now, what do you make of the developments of the last 24 hours? A new poll shows most people think the lockdown Christmas party did happen, and that is despite the denial from Number 10. Well, it was a poll by Opinion found that fewer than 1 in 10 voters believe Downing Street's claim that there was no party. 64% of people think the event happened, 9% said it didn't. And for the first time, the majority of voters think Boris Johnson should resign as Prime Minister.
Richard Taylor is a political commentator and joins us now. Richard, there are, of course, a lot of people who, frankly, don't give a damn.
I disagree. I think, Simon, the public mood is people are very angry when you consider that back in December when this alleged Christmas party took place, I may say Boris denied it, then he apologised for it, and then one of his former senior advisors cried on national television and apologised for the mock press conference that she gave trying to defend the Christmas party. So we all really know it took place. The Met Police are not investigating. They say there's a lack of evidence. Clearly there is evidence there, and the Prime Minister is trying to bury this. It's going nowhere. Let's just remember, back in December, millions of people around the country did the right thing. They complied. They listened to the government. They missed out on funerals, on weddings, hospital appointments, all because of Boris Johnson's decision to lock down the country. And now we have a Prime Minister that has flagrantly and blatantly lied to the country on public television. I find it extraordinary that this man is still in office. And of course, there are many in his party, backbenchers and MPs, that we've heard even today. You've covered this story, shouting across the chamber even, calling for vaccine passports not to go through, calling for him to resign. There has been I'm hearing that there are letters of no confidence going into the 1922 committee right now as we're speaking. His own party are not happy with Boris. And I fear, well, I don't fear, I actually think it's a good thing. This is the beginning of the end of Boris Johnson's premiership.
Johnson yesterday said he was furious. I mean, lots of people saying, was he furious at what had happened or the fact that the video had been leaked? But in actual fact, the video could really have helped the Prime Minister, couldn't it? Because that's become the distraction now.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people, like myself included, feel that it was a diversion tactic by the government to introduce Plan B. And let's remind ourselves, this is a government that categorically stated that they would not be introducing vaccine passports as it is discriminatory. In fact, there's plenty of footage online of Sajid David, Nadeem Zahawi, Boris himself, who said we will not be introducing them, and now they have. But the most extraordinary part of that press conference yesterday, Rosie, was that Boris Johnson did not rule out mandatory vaccinations. He said we need to have a conversation about it. So we've gone now from a government that said 3 weeks to flatten the curve, 15 million jobs to freedom, to now he wants a national discussion on mandatory vaccinations. I find this extraordinary. And in fact, I find it deplorable that any government would consider such a thing.
Trouble is, we keep hearing from Keir Starmer and the Labour Party that the government's always acting too late, that they were pushing for these things ages ago, and why is the government only acting now? The world of this bipartisan politics is still there. You saw Boris Johnson yesterday accusing Keir Starmer of playing politics with all this, and isn't there an element of truth in that?
Well, sadly, I think the public have lost all confidence in politicians. Our political institution is failing to deliver on the things that really matter, and that's to govern us and to keep us safe in a way that gives us our freedoms and rights. And unfortunately, Labour have not proven themselves to be a good opposition in Keir Starmer. He missed an incredible opportunity at Prime Minister's Question Times, in my opinion, when he could really have gone for Boris, not just on the hypocrisy of what happened on the Christmas party, but more so on these new restrictions that have been brought in. But yet Labour, I believe, or I understand, will be supporting these restrictions. And I think there is no real opposition or scrutiny on this current government that's going to be effective. And I think people are losing faith in politicians. But there are some politicians that are still standing up and speaking out on some of those social and civil liberties that we're seeing being taken away by this incumbent government.
There is going to be an investigation. Cabinet Secretary Simon Case has got the undertaking now of the investigation into this party. But as we hear about that party on December 18th, there are new reports, it's in the Times this morning, that there may have been yet another party on December the 14th when we were in Tier 2 restrictions.
I mean, clearly there have been several parties. I've witnessed it today, this morning, waking up to news and emails and people contacting me, sources that are reliable, telling me there were several parties, and not just in the Conservative Party. Let's just remind ourselves that the opposition might be fearful of really going at Boris on this because they themselves, maybe members of the Labour cabinet, allegedly some of them may have been at Christmas parties themselves. And so they're looking over their shoulder. I mean, the truth will come out, but I think enough damage has been done to Boris right now for the public to realise that this is not the man that they voted for. And this is what I'm hearing from people. This is not the same Prime Minister we voted for in 2019. He seems to have lost his way. And people are asking, who's advising him? Where is he getting this advice from? Because clearly it's not the same Boris Johnson that many voted for in 2019. And Conservative members across the country are questioning now whether or not they should continue to support this man and his party.
But Richard, who in 2019 could possibly have envisaged that we would be in a pandemic just a couple of years later, where people were dying, where businesses were under threat in the way that they once again will be with this renewed restriction? And yet there's no template for this. You've got. I just wonder sometimes if Boris Johnson wakes up and says, "Be careful what you wish for."
Yeah, I mean, I've got some sympathy given the fact that he became the Prime Minister and then all of a sudden this pandemic hit us. I do think, however, the consequences of some of the measures the government have put in place over the last 20 months, which includes some of the lockdowns and restrictions that have been on businesses. And of course, we've seen an increase in cancer waiting lists and hospital times and things like that. The impact has not just been because of the pandemic, it's been because of the handling by this government, the way they've gone about it. Because as you've said, Simon, and rightly so, there's been no template. So it's as if they've had to do it ad hoc. But unfortunately, I think when there is a public inquiry into how they've handled this pandemic, there's going to be a lot of, sadly, horror stories of millions of people of how they've been adversely affected, not by the pandemic itself, but by the government and the way that it's conducted itself over these restrictions and the pandemic itself.
Richard Taylor, thank you very much for your insight and analysis this morning. Political commentator speaking to us here on The Great British Breakfast.
Coming up, the family of fundraiser Captain Tom want help in changing the way we look at old people. That's coming up in just a moment.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello again, it's coming up to 20 to 9. You're watching The Great British Breakfast with Rosie and Simon.
People are really, really cross, fed up. Morning to George, who says, the current chaos reinforces my view that although Boris Johnson is great fun, intelligent, humorous, adds a lot of much-needed brightness to politics, I just don't feel he really is leadership material.
Ron says he's watching GB News for the last time. Bye, Ron.
You won't have seen that, so...
Well, I'll try to get in as quickly as I could. If he's gone, sorry, Ron, we miss you.
Chris has said, you're right, Simon. You've got some support here. Most people don't care. There are far more important issues. If this is all the opposition can come up with, then heaven help us. And John says, let's talk straight here. A lot of people have parties at Christmas. What's the problem with wine and cheese at Downing Street? People in general don't care what happens or don't care about what happened at number 10. The only ones complaining are those who wants to score political points.
Now, Sharon has said, can we please discuss more pressing issues rather than the couldn't care a monkey's party? An important bill went through Parliament yesterday. We did talk about it yesterday, and I'm waiting for that to be mentioned. That's from Sharon. And a lot of you saying, look, there is other stuff going on in the world. The contra-argument to that is we've got a Prime Minister who is under so much pressure. There are serious suggestions that this could be the beginning of the end of his premiership, and that's a story we cannot ignore.
One thing we haven't ignored this week is the government's new proposed 10-year drugs crackdown plan. And currently a 4-day police operation involving 8 police forces is underway in Ipswich to try to target organised crime on the roads. Well, under Boris Johnson's new plans to clamp down on county line gangs, operations like this one in the East region are going to receive millions of pounds in funding over the next 3 years.
Our East of England reporter Amelia Harper attended the police operation.
All right, thanks very much.
A multi-agency regional crackdown on organised crime is taking place in Ipswich. The aim to disrupt criminals who operate across county borders using the roads. Under the Prime Minister's new plans to target organised criminals, county lines and drugs, the number of disruptions like this one will increase by 20% in the next 3 years. 2,000 county lines will be dismantled using £300 million. The head of this regional operation says it is a realistic target for police.
I think it's aspirational, which is what we should be working towards, but it's going to take multi-agency response along with police forces working together collaboratively to deal with this sort of crime on our roads. The biggest challenges that we face is the intelligence around who's doing what, making sure that intelligence is fresh, making sure it's valuable.
Over 100 vehicles possibly involved in crime will be stopped by teams from 8 regional police forces. Checks will be carried out, including drugs testing if police suspect they're being used or transported. One of the plans is that testing is going to be expanded upon arrest, and individuals that are found to be doing or involved in drugs will be pointed by police towards relevant interventions. Do you feel that's your job, or perhaps something more to do with healthcare? And how is this going to affect the work that you do?
It's everybody's job to provide the recommendations, and I think that's something that we've experienced over many years of dealing with county lines, is the inability of one agency to deal with it in isolation. So in terms of what we're trying to do and what the government's announced, then there's lots of opportunities for the government agencies to work together to deal with this issue.
As part of the plans, when dealers are arrested by police, police are then able possibly to seize their phones and message their clients to try to discourage drug use. Do you think this could blur the lines between you taking action on criminality and then becoming possibly complicit in it?
It's an interesting one. I'm not sure how that would work, but ultimately the responsibility of the police is to prevent and detect crime. So anything that we can do, new ideas that are preventative as well as that detection and that investigation of crime is welcome.
During disruptions like this, police say the extra funding will help to break up organised criminals operating across different counties. They hope the new measures will help them clamp down on individuals, but also on larger scale organised crime over the next 3 years. Amelia Harper, GB News, Ipswich.
Well, we read to you a moment ago that email from Ron saying goodbye, who's fed up with GB News. And we've had a message from Julian, who says, bye-bye, Ron. Maybe this will trend. We'll see. If you're still watching, Ron, we'd welcome you back.
I don't know if Julian would. It's 9:15 here on the Great British Breakfast. Thank you to those of you who are still watching at home. Let's talk about...
A lot more will be watching from home next week.
Well, that's true. They will, because of Plan B, as we've been talking about. What about engineers? Now, the role of the modern-day engineer is extremely varied and should be widely celebrated. We talked about something similar to this a couple of weeks ago. Yet only 14.5% of those working in engineering and technical applications today are women. So to encourage female engagement in this predominantly male world, well, the Institute of Technology and Design honours the very best early career female engineers working in the UK today.
Well, Dr. Ciara McGrath is a lecturer in aerospace systems at the University of Manchester. She's won Young Woman Engineer of the Year awards from the Institute of Engineering and Technology and joins us now. Ciara, good morning to you. Am I pronouncing that right?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Is that right, kids? Ciara, is it?
It's Ciara, yeah.
Great. Now, we've been talking about engineering recently, as Rosie was saying, and particularly women's role in it. And actually, these are really exciting times because women are very much engaging with engineering.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible time to be in engineering. You know, we're seeing the sector grow and grow and contribute to so many different elements of our lives. These awards were an amazing example. I was nominated as one of 6 finalists, and these women were working in all sorts of fields, from developing sustainable housing right through to enhancing wheelchairs for people in our community who need that help. So it's incredible to see the contributions women are making to engineering today.
this genuine effort to try and inspire more women at a younger age to think that can be a career choice that they could champion and challenge and sort of wrestle with. What was it that sparked your interest?
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny story. I always loved science and maths when I was in school, but I thought that I would be a scientist. And I think that's true for a lot of children, you know, that we have this idea of what a scientist is, but we're not really sure what an engineer is. And it was actually my dad who encouraged me to consider a career in engineering, because he told me that scientists study the world, which is incredibly important, but it's engineers who take those discoveries and help to actually build the world of the future and make a real difference to lives. And I thought that sounded incredible.
Well, it's really good to talk to you about it, and let's hope more and more follow your lead. Kira, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
And parents inspiring their daughters as well. That's brilliant. It's gone 9:15 now. TikTok. Are you on TikTok, Simon?
I am, actually.
Are you?
I was a very early adopter of TikTok.
Have any of your videos gone viral?
One of mine appeared last week. It's one I don't want to talk about.
OK.
Thank you.
TikTok put out some strange viral hits this year. Cats, sea shanties, Euro 2020 were among the biggest trends in the UK during 2021, according to figures from the video sharing platform. Well, the social media giant's annual review showed the most popular video of the year on the site was a Mia the cat user, I don't know how you say the handle, sort of Mia, completing an obstacle course, which we can see her completing there. It's been viewed more than 184 million times.
Well, let's talk now to the parents of Mia, Yulia Yanchenko, Dmitry Nukov. They join us now, and a very good morning to you both. Oh my word, look at that. That is just a great shot. First of all, what gave you the idea to do this video?
We were starting this as a family archive, essentially, but then as we live, well, she is an indoor cat, and we wanted to challenge her a little bit to make her a bit more agile, to make her jump a bit higher. And that's how the challenge course started for us. We were starting smaller and smaller, and then we were trying to get bigger and bigger.
Was it kind of in lockdown? Was it out of many hours spent at home?
Yeah, it was a bit because of the lockdown. We were initially starting it with the toilet paper, and then we were getting paper cups.
It looks like it's taken an awful lot of time to come up with. Much training involved?
No, not that much. She hates the sound of the falling cups. So it was, she was essentially trying to make her best to make sure she doesn't hear that sound.
What are the other TikTok videos that you've seen that have inspired you? Well, that rather answers the question, doesn't it? Yeah, you've probably been far too busy with the cat. We're just looking at her now. Is she aware of her fame?
I don't think so, but she is quite smart. We teach her different new tricks. So, and I were teaching her how to give high fives and how to choose which hand has a treat.
Come on, let's see a high five.
With dogs.
Yeah, high five time. Come on.
What should I? We've given her too many treats to make her sit over there.
Do you know, that happens to me on this show. I give Rosie a few treats at 6 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, it's hopeless. Can't do anything. Now...
184 million views, though. I'm sure, when you did that first video, had no idea the kind of traction it was going to generate.
No, we definitely didn't expect any of that. That is amazing, and we really thank every single person who watched the video and who liked the video. That is truly amazing.
Made any money out of it?
Well, a little. TikTok pays you for views, but, well, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Enough to quit the day job?
I wouldn't say enough to quit the day job, but it's a really, really nice side hustle, especially when in lockdown, everything is closed, and that keeps you occupied while you're at home.
And a more comfortable Christmas, it sounds like, with the funding from your wonderful chat. There was a mini high five.
There was a mini high five. Yulia, well done. Thank you. That's great. Dimitri, great to talk to both of you. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
You know, we failed to do a high five the other day on the programme. We failed to do one with Monty Panesar yesterday, and now we're asking us to do the same.
I shall bring treats in, Rosie.
Okay. Right, so let's move on. It's just gone 10 to 9 here on the Great British Breakfast. Tonight, Charles Spencer is going to host an event in honour of his late sister, Diana, the Princess of Wales. The 9th Earl of Spencer will host the Diana Awards ceremony at Althorpe House, the 508-year-old Spencer family estate in Northamptonshire, where Diana grew up.
Well, Tessie Ojo, CBE, is the CEO of the Diana Award and joins us now. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, and I promise I'll give you a high five if I was with you right now.
We're there. We're absolutely there. So just talk us through what sort of stories, what sort of people we're going to be hearing about in the award ceremony tonight.
We are going to be hearing about 20 incredible young change makers who, whilst all of us were struggling with the pandemic, young people who saw a need and just rose to the challenge, like a young girl from India called Sia, who realized that actually in the pandemic, there were thousands of families who didn't have shoes to wear. And whilst we're talking about keeping ourselves healthy and fit, people actually didn't have shoes. And she began to collect shoes from people who had spare shoes and distributed it to over 4,500 families, just so that they could keep themselves fit and healthy. And it's stories of, to me, young people who are courageous, young people who've seen a need and who have risen to the challenge. And it's going to be such an incredible evening because, we have lived through the last, almost 2 years of such uncertainty, such darkness. And tonight is about inspiration and hope.
And I think it's an amazing challenge to have to go through such a number of fantastically inspiring young people.
Oh, 100%. I know, it's like, how do we received thousands of nominations and yet, the Legacy Award is about, we started the Legacy Award in 2017 to recognize and celebrate the 20th anniversary of the late Princess' death. And so we know it's a huge challenge, bringing that number down to 20. But one of the things that we look at is beyond this 20, it's about celebration that actually young people are at the forefront of asking for change. When we look at COP26, for example, we heard the voices of young people. And, as our world is changing, I think what we're seeing is young leaders emerging saying, we want to take charge of our future. We have the innovation, we have the inspiration. We want to be involved in shaping that future. And that's exactly what we're doing. So tonight goes beyond just a celebration. It's about how empowering and building the capacity of young people to take charge.
And Diana, a wonderful catalyst for young people in life, now in death. And of course, you've got a brother there to support it.
Absolutely. Princess Diana often believed that young people with the right support have the power to change the world. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're celebrating, we're really highlighting and showcasing young people who truly are changing the world, with the aim of inspiring other young people to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah, what struck me just reading about every single one of them, the word passion, it's there in every single one of them. They're absolutely passionate about what they do.
100%. And I think one of the things I love about these young people is some of them have done have done their project in spite of adversity. Some of them have faced huge challenges, and yet they've learned to overcome that and turn perhaps what would have been a negative experience into something positive. And that's just remarkable. And there's something about that determination, that passion, that resilience that perhaps we need to talk about more.
Yep. Well, look, have a really great evening, and congratulations to all those who win and to you for organising it. And hey.
High five. Thank you so much.
Tessie Ojo, great to see you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much to... oh, no. What?
Oh, no, what?
Got about 10 seconds left. So many of you have got in touch with your views on the party, the restrictions, high fives, Ron's departure. We'll look at them across the day.
Coming up next, The Briefing. We'll see you next week.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello, good morning. Quieter conditions as far as the weather's concerned today compared to the last few days. Lighter winds and brighter skies expected in many places. But there will be more rain coming along later associated with these weather fronts. Now, these are moving in from the west by the end of Thursday, but this is the last of Storm Barra, this occluded front, which is bringing an area of cloud and some showers during the morning to much of northern and eastern UK. The showers tending to fizzle out, the cloud moving into the North Sea by the afternoon, so that, well, actually, plenty of sunny skies then start to emerge across central and eventually eastern parts of the country into the afternoon. Whilst further west, a bright start, but cloud and rain push in here from the west, and some milder air, 12 Celsius in the southwest, whilst 6 or 7 is about as high as it will get further east. The cloud and rain in the west will move east, affecting many places during the evening, an hour or two of wet weather before eventually overnight pushing into the North Sea. That's then replaced by clear spells, but also blustery showers, especially in the west and the northwest. And those showers will be on the heavy side around coasts especially. Temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius generally, with enough of a breeze to prevent a widespread frost, but perhaps a touch of frost in some sheltered spots first thing, particularly in the east where we'll get some clear skies and some sunshine during Friday morning. And actually, it's looking like a decent day in the east with plenty of sunny skies for the Midlands, East Anglia, South East England, North East England and Eastern Scotland. Elsewhere, quite a few showers moving through. Hail and thunder mixed in with some of those heavier downpours, especially earlier in the day, and it'll feel cold with a blustery breeze. Into Saturday, and it's a frosty start for many of us, but a bright start before cloud and rain work across the country later on. On Sunday, it's damp in the south, but mild, drier and brighter further north.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.